Talofa, and welcome to the second episode of the National English Honor Society Albert 1 Chapters podcast, The Ripple. Before we start, we'd like to give a special shout out to our grantors, the Hershey's Heartwarming Project, as well as our other local sponsors and family members who helped us through this journey. Without further ado, I am your co-host, Riley Jessup.
And I'm your other co-host, Malia Kim Fruin.
And today we have here a very special guest, Dr. Sabrina Suluai-Mahuka. She is the owner of Suluai-Mahuka Consulting and the founder of FinaFinau, which is the only local nonprofit organization with chapters in the high schools in American Samoa.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for being here with us, Dr. Sabrina. I've had the pleasure to have you as a teacher here at Samoana High School, but since you've left, we wanted to kind of invite you to give us an overview of what teaching was like here at Samoana.
At Samoana, I was fortunate to come back because this is my alma mater, and so I was happy to kind of just step back on my old stomping grounds. But I also came with a passion of wanting to make a difference in my community because, you know, this is where I grew up as well, and I felt like it felt like a homecoming. And so just being in the classroom, it was interesting to have the roles flipped and reversed. When I graduated high school, I never came back to the school until it was time for me to teach. And so when I came back, I was, sitting in back of a teacher's desk and actually giving the lectures. And I just felt like I was having deja vu because I just was sitting in those same seats. So it was quite interesting to be in a space where I could nurture our future generations in English language arts.
And you've done a very great job at it. To this day, I'm still very grateful that I got to have Dr. Sabrina as a teacher on her last year too. So she's helped me a lot.
Thanks. I wish I stayed for your senior year.
Yeah, that would have been great, but I still am very grateful.
As a former teacher, we know that you taught at a private school, Malisi, or Marist. And I just want to ask you, what made you specifically come to teach here at Samoana High School?
That's a great question. So funny thing is I actually applied to be a third grade teacher to teach at either Pongo Elementary or Matafao Elementary. And they didn't call me for about 7 months. And my brother was going to Marist at the time. And so my parents just said, you know what? Just try it out. I know it's high school, but at the same time, I was very intimidated because I think I was only 20 years old at the time. And, that's only 2 years older than the supposed students I'm supposed to teach. And I did end up teaching seniors that year. And, of course, most seniors were, way taller than me. And so that was a very, very interesting start to my career. But I am always grateful to Fasao Amaris for taking me in and just allowing me to learn and grow as a teacher. I think by the time I left, I felt I was able just to hold my own in a public school classroom and then also kind of just branch away from the Catholic religion just because, with the private school, it was embedded in the curriculum, and I wanted just to kind of focus more on the education aspect of things.
Now, would you say that there was a big difference between teaching at a private school versus a public school?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think the dynamics of the classroom are entirely different. I do have my favorite students from Fasao Maris, and I will always cherish them. But I think the mindset in a public school is maybe a bit more different. And even with the parents, I felt like parents here in the public school, they felt a little bit more grateful towards towards teachers who were hard on the students and more strict. Whereas when I was, at the private school, sometimes I would be questioned, why does my student have homework? Or why does my child have homework? That was a real question. I was like, well, they didn't finish their work in the classroom, so they do have homework, and it's, all purposeful homework. Another one was, why were they reading this classical Jane Austen book? Something that would help them with their future. And so coming to a public school, I think it gave me a little bit more freedom in terms of making a curriculum that was acceptable not only to my students, but also in a way that provides the experience and the knowledge that our students need in order to succeed in their college and career pathways.
Now, Dr. Sabrina, if you were given maybe a week to come back and teach here at Sawana, you can't change anything else with everything that it is, would you take that opportunity to teach one last time?
So I wouldn't be able to change
No.
the curriculum or anything?
No, or the administration.
Oh, well, if I wasn't allowed to teach anything, that would be a no. Just because I don't think it would be meaningful for me to teach empty assignments or empty curriculum. It would need to be purposeful and relevant to our students and to their futures.
What would you say you miss about teaching? Like,
Oh,
what were like the most memorable moments for you?
that's always going to be the students, the connections that you make. And I know that I'm a pretty brusque person, but that's because I want things done like in a very organized and structured manner. But the connections that I make with my students are always some of the things that I will always cherish as a teacher, because I get to help them be better and learn and grow. And then they come to a point where they don't need me anymore. And then that's when I know that I did my job. And then when I see them out in the world, I have, students who are graduating with their bachelors, who are about to be officers in the military, and they're still talking to me and reminiscing about being in my English class. And that's really what teaching is all about. And that's really what I miss as a teacher.
Yeah, I remember before I had you as a teacher, what I'd hear around is, oh, I have to do this for Miss Sabrina. I have to do this for Miss Sabrina.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I heard all these assignments. And so coming up and knowing that I would have you as a teacher, I was pretty scared.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because you in general are very intimidating to talk to. I think, yeah, but when I finally had you as a teacher, it was very different. Every day it was a learning experience, and I was grateful for every day because, you learned something new. It wasn't just something you do just to pass time. And I can say wholeheartedly that everything I've done in Miss Sabrina's class has helped me to this day. With that, Dr. Sabrina, what are the downfalls of teaching? What is it that you look back on and you think, okay, I'm glad I'm not going through that anymore?
All right. Well, thank you for sharing. I was laughing about the intimidating part just because grown adults still say that to me. So it's quite funny. I've been trying to work on this face. But, with teaching, if it was just teaching, then I would still be here in the classroom. But unfortunately, you're not just a teacher. You're also their guidance counselor. You're also an advisor for probably 2 to 3 clubs at a time, just because the students know that you're reliable and that's who they want to work with. You're also part of the accreditation team, which is hours and hours and hours of work that I don't know when you're supposed to complete that. You also have to write all your lesson plans and grade in your prep period that you don't get a prep period. You're subbing constantly, and it really takes a toll on people's mental health. And if there's no support within the school or with externally as well, then there's really nothing that teachers can do to recover from that mental load that they're dealing with in and out every day. And again, the relief comes from the students, that connection that really, builds that fire to keep you passionate in the classroom. But with everything else, it just completely smothers the reason why you became a teacher in the first place. Yeah.
Would you say that you were supported here in your years of Sawana High School?
To a point. With Sawana, I think when I was working here, we had about 5 different principals. So it was just kind of in and out. And so there were a few principals who were really, open to things. And if they had trust in you as a teacher or an advisor, they would say, you know what, thank you for letting me know. Go ahead and take the lead. That's fine. You know what you're doing, as long as you, follow the school rules or uplift the school and uplift the students. And that was great. When I felt that support, I felt like I could do anything in this classroom. I can do and get my students to where they needed to be in their futures. But the minute that support stopped, It was like the opposite of support. It was just kind of a little bit of tearing down. And it just became clear that as a teacher, and I'll be honest, like this is super honest, I just felt like I wasn't welcome as a teacher anymore. And again, not from the students, but just from the overall picture. It didn't feel like I wanted to come to work anymore. I just kind of dreaded everything because I just kept thinking about, if I teach this, or if I give this assignment, or if I have my students join this community service, there's going to be some kind of back talk about it, and that's not going to be positive.
And during your time as a teacher here at Samoana, you started a organization, FinaFinau, which I'm very grateful is still an organization, even though you're no longer a teacher. Can you please elaborate on how FinaFinau came to be?
Oh, so that was funny. I actually saw this flyer for a summer program. It was, again, I was teaching English, and it was open for science teachers to apply to with their students. But my students came to me and said that none of their science teachers were helping them. So I said, oh, you know what, fine. I can just help you because there's an essay portion and, we can do essays. And so I helped them apply, and then my students were able to get accepted. And because I helped them, I was also accepted, which I didn't know that was gonna happen. So that was a pleasant surprise. And I went to visit the National Conservation Training Center all the way in West Virginia. To participate in an indigenous program that promotes land stewardship, that promotes culture. And so we had so many rich learning experiences. And that's where I really learned how to create a youth program that actually empowers youth. And, not to use that word loosely, but we have all these community projects that say, oh, yeah, we empower the youth, we empower them with what? And so actually being in that space in West Virginia, that's really where I can see the vision that I wanted for American Samoa. And it made me realize that we didn't really have anything that promoted culture and land stewardship at the same time, and that pride for our island. And so when I came back, I started off with 7 students. I had my college prep class, had it mandatory for them, and we had a lot of experimenting with what kind of community service projects worked, and then what didn't work, and what was most needed for the community. And from those 7 students, we were able to just kind of continuously build to 20 students, to 30 students, and then this year we had about 150. It's been difficult not being in the classroom and working with the students directly, and so we're still navigating how to be able to empower our chapter advisors to take the lead. And so that's been a learning process. And for next year, we were able to kind of learn from our experience this year, and we're going to come back stronger and hopefully increase our presence in the schools and not just have 3 chapters, possibly 4 to 5 chapters this coming school year.
Yes, we love to hear that because there are currently 3 chapters, 1 here at Samoana, 1 in Tafuna, and 1 in Votech.
Yeah, for clubs like FinaFinau, I'm very grateful for clubs like FinaFinau because, of course, they empower the youth. Not only that, but they give us real opportunities as young students of the island. But not only that, but opportunities like the Nikal trip. I wanted to talk about that. I'm still so blown away. I thought things like going off island was only stuff that happened in the movies, and now I'm going on a trip for this specific club.
And paid for.
All paid for. And our fundings.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk more about our Nikal trip and how you got into that stuff?
Well, NICALC, I've been involved for the past 6. I think this is going to be my 7th year with NICALC, and it's always been a learning experience, and I love bringing students to this because it just feels like you're able to breathe again, and you're able to just push the restart button and say, you know what, I think I can make a difference in my community. I feel like everyone around me wants the same. They want to just make a positive change in not only their schools, but their entire community. And for them, it's their tribes, and for us, it's our island. And I can't wait for you to experience that, and I can't wait for Mrs. Collins to experience that too, especially after this rough school year. So it's going to be a great learning experience, to not only just learn about land stewardship or about STEM in general, but also just a lot of personal reflection, like who you are as a person, who you are as a person in your community. And so this year it's a blessing because I get to take my little baby with me. She's not going to learn much, but she's going to be in the space, and so hopefully it soaks in.
She is so cute. Well, now that you stepped away from the teaching life, you've made sure to still offer your help in opening your own business, Suluai-Mahuka Consulting. Can you please tell us a little bit more about that and how that came to be?
So after deciding that I was going to step out of the classroom, I needed to brainstorm how I can kind of stay passionate about education and fulfill, my personal goals, but at the same time I wanted to cater to my daughter. She was just born, and this was the only time I was going to be able to spend with her when she's, brand new to this world. And so I wanted a job that I could control my own schedule, and with starting my own business, I was able to do that, and also just focus on on things that I actually like doing. I like doing college and career prep and getting our students to get scholarships and getting them into colleges. I like doing professional development so that teachers or organizations learn how to be better and how to utilize like our I would say our local resources and our local knowledge in order to amplify their skill set in the workplace. At first, I thought I was just going to be focusing on the students, but a lot of organizations and departments have reached out asking for training, and also just maybe possibly like coordinating their programs for long-term STEM development and like youth programs. So that's been pretty awesome to navigate. I will be honest with you, it was a big learning curve because I never really understood business. Numbers are not my strength. Finance specifically is not my strength, and so I had to take like a mini MBA with like 13 different courses, and so that was interesting to navigate and trying to get my head around some of these concepts. But I think that while you don't have a steady income if you're on a contract, just not like teaching or a government job, like you can not even do your job in the classroom. Let's just be honest, you can show up and you'll still get paid. But when you start your own business, you really have to fight to get contracts and to get funding, and that's been interesting to do, but also kind of empowering as well, because whatever comes in, I know that it's based off my effort or based off of my skill set.
Yes, Leah and I have had the privilege to attend one of your anthology workshops, which you've had, which was an absolute success. It was very useful. But you've also mentioned during the workshop about Tala Noah and the submissions, which I am. Everyone watching should as too. But can you please give us a little more information about that?
Sure thing. Tala Noah, Navigating Our Narratives, is an anthology to collect Pacific Island stories from Pacific Island people. I think that there are so many times we have stories told about us, but they're not from us, and that makes such a big difference. And it's very rare to see literature come out from places like American Samoa. Very, very rare. I love reading. I absolutely do. And when I was growing up, that was how I was able to take away my stress, was to read, to find myself in a different situation or a different reality. And I think students would, or just people in general, would like the same. But it's hard when you're reading a book that you can't see yourself in. This took years to figure out, but I have multiple ethnicities, and so I didn't see a Samoan in the book. I didn't see Filipinos or Chinese folks in there as well. Or if I did, I really couldn't relate to them because they were not the same mix that I was, or dealing with being an Afghasi, or dealing with living on an island and my eyes being too slanted. I was called, I'm a small Samoan, but a large Filipino. And so the anthology is meant to collect those type of stories so that other people can connect through the human emotions that are in the writing, that are in the text. And we're here to connect people. We're here to elevate Pacific people. We're here to preserve our Pacific culture and literature and our language and our traditions. And so that's what Tala Noah is about. And that's actually a passion project that's been on my mind for several years. But now that I'm out of the classroom, I can actually pursue something that I really, really am passionate about.
Yeah, I think it's what you said. It's very rare to see real Pacifica stories from real Pacific people. And I think there's a lot of real heartfelt, heartbreaking stories in our island that a lot of our Samoan women and men, just all of our that our community carries. We have no real way to express it, or we don't know how to express it. We don't know how to write it out on paper. For me, I know that I don't know how to write my story out on paper, so that's why I think these workshops are very important, so that we can give our island some help on how to actually thoroughly express our stories and to give our people an actual voice to tell our stories.
Absolutely. Writing is a perfect creative outlet for healing. I'll be honest with you. There are a lot of times when I'm writing things and it's my own stories and I'm reliving these memories and these experiences, and I'm hearing the words that people have said or my own thoughts. And man, it makes me like really vulnerable, and sometimes I have to cry it out, but mental health is so important. Emotional health is so important, and writing gives you, like you were saying, that way to kind of to overcome all of those feelings. And for me, once I get it out, I can accept, what has happened, and I can not so much as just focus on the negative, but I can think about my own self-reflection. And the anthology is not just for, our trials, but also for our triumphs, because that is so important. I think there's a lot of stigma about being Pacific Islanders sometimes, but we have a lot of things to celebrate, and we are really amazing as people, and it's really important for the other people who are not Pacific Islanders to understand that, or who are Pacific Islanders and don't realize that. Yes. So yeah.
If it's one thing about Miss Sabrina, it's always that she wants you to feel heard, but that with her motivating you to make a difference, to make an impact within your community, whether it be through English or art or math. Miss Sabrina was actually very inspirational to me in starting my own passion project, which had to do with math. And so I found that very therapeutic for me, because, I might not be the best at words at times, but math really does help me. I love math. And so just being able to help other people start to love math and see math in a different perspective, that really helped me as well. And with that, we wanted to ask you, Miss, the burning question. Every episode we have a burning question. Okay. So the burning question is, what are you up to now?
All right. So besides FinaFinau,
yes.
Besides my consulting business, I am aiming to be a published author by the end of this year. Not just with the anthology, because with the anthology, I'm a contributor and I'm an editor. But I aim to be a published author at the end of this year. I am an academic author, so I'm published in like the academic space and the very rigid space, and that's great. I'm very, very proud of that. But I want to produce literature that really elevates American Samoa, and so I have a couple drafts that are in the works, and I have an illustrator working. I literally hired an illustrator. It's so cool. It's like so legitimate, and I have meetings to talk about how I can get my work in the public schools.
Oh.
I won't tell more about it, but that's the goal, is to be a published author by the end of this year.
But you're going to be writing about stories relating to our island?
Yes. I'm imagining like a little Sabrina growing up and trying to navigate Being a Pacific Islander, being an Asian Pacific Islander, and trying to learn our language, our culture. And so that's the mindset that I'm doing. And even if we have students who are like full Samoan, but not really being able to learn as much because they're in English speaking households, or or their parents are busy, I hope that my work is able to like provide that foundation for our students. And so it's a work in progress, but that's the goal, is to be an author.
Wow, miss.
We wish you all the best in that, Dr. Sabrina. With that, is there anything you would like to conclude with?
I just want to commend you all for this awesome opportunity to be here. This whole setup is super legit, and I love that you have a podcast. You don't see podcasts in high schools.
Yes.
Or if you do, you don't see them on island. And so maybe this is something that a story that you guys can write about too, because now this is an opportunity for you to be heard. Mm-hmm. And like the name itself, The Ripple, you are making waves in your community just by hosting a podcast. I have goosebumps right now. Like, I love that you have this, and that you're giving each other a space to talk. Even if it's just about academics or about your goals, you're still giving a space for each other. And you are co-host. That's awesome. Thank you.
Well, you were very influential with getting this started by introducing to us the Hershey's Heartwarming Project. And through that, we were able to be given this platform to be able to share our experiences and to be able to make a change. And so thank you for that, Dr. Sabrina. We're very grateful. But is there anything you would want to say, Leah?
I'd just like to say thank you for coming on our podcast, and I'm really grateful for all the teaching experience that I get to have with you.
Thank you. And it's a learning process. So you see the positive side of things, like in terms of success, but behind the scenes there's a lot of downfalls, and the ambitious side, that's my Slytherin side. And so you got to work towards it, but I know that if you stay true to yourself, you're going to be able to accomplish whatever you put your mind to.
Thank you, miss.
You're welcome.
Thank you again for all that you do for our youth, Dr. Sabrina. We can't wait to see what you have in store. And with that, we'd like to end. Bye.
Bye.